So for those of you who haven't seen my videos yet, I am a Nashville guitar player. I'm born and raised here, and I have been lucky enough to work with a lot of really cool people over the years. But my biggest goal was to get into studio work, as is quite a few of us here in town. There's a ton of guitar players here. There's a ton of fantastic guitar players here. So as you can imagine, studio work is quite a difficult thing to get your foot in the door with. I have been lucky to get in and do some stuff here and there. It hasn't been anywhere near as much as I'd like for it to be. But that being said, it's been great. I've got to meet a lot of cool people. I've got to do a lot of cool sessions. And over the years, I have taken note of all the things that they ask for in sessions, and I built this monstrosity of a pedal board that I'm about to show you. So what in the world possessed me to spend so much money on a pedal board like this when I very easily could have bought a Line 6 Helix or a Fractal or a Kemper, any number of other things that could have very easily condensed all of these sounds into a usable, easily portable unit. For me, it was just that this is what I wanted and I knew what I liked. So I'll answer a couple pretty frequent questions first. It's 20 by 40. In the road case, it weighs 125-ish pounds. Yes, I have flown with it a couple times. I did a cruise ship gig at the beginning of this year, and I decided, I built this gigantic board, and I put all this money into it to use it, so let's fly it out and use it for a cruise ship gig. That turned out to be a massive headache. Delta Airlines seriously screwed some stuff up. That was a fun fiasco. Anyway, my ears are personally just not a fan of amp simulation. Digital amp simulation, it just sounds digital to me. And some of it's really great, and there's absolutely places for it, and there's times to use it. And on a gig where I have the option to have something else, I choose to have the something else. So initially, I built this board to be a stationary studio rig. I took it into the studio a few times, and I loved it so much, I just constantly found myself wanting to play through it and record at home with it too. And so I opted to not do that. I didn't leave it at the studio. It stayed at the studio for about a week. I was getting anxious. I wanted to play through it. So anyway, I opted to start using it at home, on the road, for my demo videos, all kinds of stuff. And I do switch back and forth between a real amplifier and this pedal board direct rig. But for the most part, I use this pedal board rig just because I love it. I spent so much time planning it. I spent so much money on it, and I personally am the one who built it. So I have built pedal boards for multiple players here in Nashville. Now, this board was definitely much, much later down the line of building boards, and you can tell when you look at it because it's quite extravagant and pretty in-depth build here. All right, so we will start with the amp. Top right, that is the Thermion Zero. It is a solid-state analog amplifier, and I am a huge, huge, huge fan and supporter of that product. It has a stereo effects loop, which allows me to also run the two XLR outs left and right, and at the same time, I can run two left and right passive speaker cabinets if I wanted to, because it is a power amp as well, 50 watts on each side. It also has the option to add in a preamp. So it's got what they call the preamp loop. So you can switch between your internal preamp, which is supposed to be more Fender-esque, and then you can have an external preamp where you reach over like this. So that's an internal preamp, and with that off, you have your external preamp. And so that's running the Peace Hill Effects ODS tube pre, and obviously ODS stands for Overdrive Special because it's based on the Dumble Overdrive Special, and it sounds fantastic. It also has a channel switch on it. I'm always playing it clean, though, just because I need a clean platform for pedals. Okay, so moving on. Let's start at the beginning of the chain where I have my Pog 2. Here's my organ sound. All right, add some reverb. You get the gist. It sounds awesome. I also like to use the Pog for like a synth, if I wanted to beef up a line like with a synth. So here's without it. Right? With. I also like to record fake bass lines. I know that irritates some bass players out there, but you know, when you are just sitting at the house by yourself and want to record some stuff, it's just easier to do that. So. And it's more than passable for a bass. All right. The compadre, compressor, boost. I've got the boost set to a dirty boost, so I just like to use the drive portion of it. All right, pretty simple. And on that, I actually use the treble boost. I don't typically use it by itself. I use it in conjunction with other things. So if I want to run a darker and then layer it. So that's what that's for. All right, my wah pedal is pretty simple. It's straightforward, just a Buddha wah from the 90s. I love that thing. That's my absolute all-time favorite wah pedal. And then we get to our drive section and our Boss ES5. So the ES5 obviously is a MIDI controller and a loop switcher as well. So one is empty right now. One is under the bridge, underneath the Mobius right there, and the slot is empty. I'm waiting on my Electro-Harmonix Qtron Plus to show up, and that will go in slot 1. Slot 2, you can't see, is under the Illumin right here, and it's a JHS Pack Rat. Heavy. That's the Eddie Boost drive, the pretty white one right there. This is my Monstrous clone. Which stacks wonderfully with the Eddie Boost drive. And then I've got a custom Wampler pedal under there that just has a big Ron John Surf Shop sticker across the top of it, but this is what it sounds like. And then over to the volume pedal, which is also a tuner, over to the JHS Clover. So, all right, the reason I opted for the Clover is I can use it for a couple different things. Mind you, when I built this board, again, I built it to be in the studio. So I had written down all of the things across about the span of a year when I was working in the studio, all of the different things that people were asking for that I didn't have, or all the things that I took note the engineers needed to do for themselves to get, extra lines. A lot of times, especially now, engineers will drop a direct line before you even go into your pedal board. So you'll just have straight up dry direct guitar signal in case they want to do what's called reamping, which is their ability to go in and run your guitar through, most of the time, just through a plug-in on the computer. And if they want you to be playing through a Marshall or a Fender or a Vox or whatever flavor that fits what they need it to fit, it just helps them mix a little bit better. Not everybody does that, but I've seen a lot of guys start doing it more frequently. So it's just more options for them. So that being said, I am coming out of the side of the JHS Clover on the XLR out, and I'm going direct to my computer right now. So this is what that sounds like. It's pretty cut and dry. lot of famous guitar lines that were recorded directly into something, directly into the board, or just direct, no amplifier. So it's a pretty common thing in the studio for somebody to ask you to have that. Or for them to be able to provide it for you. But I opted to actually build it into my board, so all that they had to do was just plug an XLR directly into the out of my drive section on the board. And that also acts as an EQ. Now, it's not a 7-band EQ. A lot of guys in the studio like to use the GE7. I do love that pedal. I just, for some reason, didn't incorporate it onto this board. Which I feel like I should have, and I might still try to figure out how to do a little bit later. But for now, that's where we are. So out of the JHS Clover into the JHS Little Black Buffer. The Little Black Buffer then goes into the input, the very first input on the Thermion Zero. So like plugging into the front of an amplifier. So from there, we come out to the stereo effects loop. It's all the true stereo effects. So the H9, the Mobius, Timeline, and the Nunaber Illumin reverb on the very end there. These are invaluable to me. Stereo is what I've done for years. I love recording in stereo. Whenever I go to the studio, I beg them to just record it in stereo and just see what it sounds like. If they don't like it, we can always change it. But for the most part, I'm a huge supporter and advocate of playing guitar in stereo, just because it's so much bigger and so much cooler. I played, my regular band in Nashville for years was a trio. So playing in stereo made sense because it filled out the sound a lot more. So I just got used to doing that over time, and it's just become kind of my favorite thing to do. Okay, so let's just run through. I guess most of you guys are pretty familiar. If you sat here long enough, you've been down the gear rabbit hole. So most of you guys are familiar enough with these effects. Let's just play around with some sounds that I've put together that I'm quite a fan of. So we'll start with the reverb on the Illumin. This is the name right there says big hair plate, but that's just a stock sound. So I play a lot with my Compadre compressor on, and with the JHS Clover just on the no EQ setting, so it's just the straight preamp with a volume. Right. And then we have the lovely H9 here. So let's kill some of that reverb. The Leslie sim on the H9 is absolutely my favorite. I haven't found a digital sim for a rotary yet that I like better than this one. And then the very first preset on the H9 is a cool dotted delay that I like to use. All right, so as far as MIDI control is concerned on this board, I am running, currently I'm running the H9, Mobius, and Timeline on MIDI. I'm getting ready to hook up the Illumin, the Compadre, and I'm also having the POG 2 modified and having a MIDI control put on that so it can actually be turned on and off and presets changed on it. So I'm pretty excited about that one. That's going to be great. Right now it's not exactly dialed in, but it will be soon. As you can hear, that's pretty crazy. Pretty wild sounds there. I haven't set the H9 yet. So I bought this Mission Expressionator. I randomly saw it on a studio board here in Nashville on a session we were doing one time, and the guy explained to me what it was. And so, for those who don't know, I'm sure some of you may have again, you've been down this rabbit hole. If you've watched this video as much as I've talked about so far, and you're still with me, you've been down this rabbit hole. So the Mission Expressionator allows you to plug one expression pedal into 3 different boxes, 3 different effects that can receive expression jacks or can receive the expression pedal output. So this allows you to switch. So this is going into the Expressionator right there. And then I can switch. A is the timeline, B is the Mobius, and C is the Eventide H9. So B, you see the numbers change there, which is great. The Eventide is really cut and dry. It just goes, 0 to 100 right there. So you know that it's working. The other cool thing about it is if you reach down here, you can actually turn on all 3 units at the same time and move all of them simultaneously. So if you want to get into some really weird stuff, it'll definitely do it. Right? And you can also change the waveform of how your pedal is moving. So the taper can go up and, like toe heel, or your toe can, be the heel, or it can do a sharp up and then drop. It just does a couple different things, but it's just such a cool unit, man. And it gives you, if you're willing to do the deep dive and get really into like your settings and all of your different sounds, which you kind of have to do when you're playing with artists. They have very specific things that they need. And not every artist is going to be, super experimental, so you might not need this for that. But like if you want to control the Leslie, for example. So it's good for a lot of stuff. It's just a great unit, and I'm thrilled to have it on the board. Okay, and on to one other little cool thing about this board. As if I don't have enough reverb from the Illumin, it's fantastic. But the Thermion Zero has a built-in digital reverb too. Now it only has 3 settings. It has short, medium, and long. So here's no reverb. Here's medium reverb. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have a shorter reverb on the Illumin. So like, well, that's not that short. Here. Or at least quieter. And then if I want to add to it, I'll add that one. The only thing that I haven't talked about is just the whole thing's powered by 3 different Chalks units. I've got the DC7, the Chalks 8, and the Chalks 4 on here. That may have been overkill, but I wanted each pedal to have its own individual output, even though the Chalks is known for being such a powerful unit that you could run. Honestly, if I separated them properly, I could probably run this entire board off of just the DC7 It's really, really powerful unit. It's fantastic. But that being said, I wanted everything to have its own output. So this board is like way over the top. It's way overbuilt, but it's quiet. I mean, I've got my guitar turned down right now. There's effects on. There's a drive. You start to get a little bit of some hiss when you start turning drives on. Anyway, but that's just how that goes. But without those drives on, I mean, I got all kinds of stuff turned on here. And it's just quiet. That's pretty wild.